Hello, this is Olivia Jones with my Field Experience Project. For my placement, I was at Mount Wolf Elementary School, which is at 590 Maple Street, Mount Wolf, PA. It was a third grade inclusive classroom, and the dates I visited were October 5th, October 19th, and October 26th of 2016, which I stayed from 8 a.m. to noon. As you can see here, I have pictures of the school I was at, and I also have a picture of my attire. Usually I just wore nice dress pants, a sweater, and some flats. I was very lucky to be placed with the very sweet Danielle Kipp, which her email is kipda@nebobcats.org. While I was here, I got to observe the kids during intervention, mathematics, phonics, special, grammar, and writing. To the right here, I have some pictures of the classroom before the students arrived. There were 20 students in total, and 7 had disabilities, which comes to about 35% of the class. There were 10 boys and 10 girls, and they were all in third grade and were around 8 years old. The majority of the class were white, with a few African American and Hispanic children in the mix. Now moving on to the accommodations made in Mrs. Kipp's classroom. If you look at the test pictured at right, you'll see that the bottom 2 questions are crossed out. This is done for children with ADHD, trouble with reading, and trouble concentrating to help them from getting overwhelmed and to help them focus better while taking a test. By only having to worry about 2 questions instead of 4, the child is able to relax and doesn't have to focus as long. Our book talks a little bit about this on page 264 under Suggestions for the Classroom. This can be found under Academic Skills. It says, if reading is weak, provide additional reading time, use previewing strategies, select text with less on a page, shorten amount of required reading, and avoid oral reading. This applies here because the teacher is putting less reading material on a page, which makes it a little easier for kids who are slower at reading or have trouble reading do better on their tests. The teacher can then have the kids answer the rest of the questions at a later time so that they're not overwhelmed with all the questions at the same time, but they are able to answer all the questions on the test. Next, we have a graphic organizer. This here is given to all the students with disabilities and with not to help them organize their thoughts better. This is very important and helpful to the students because most have trouble organizing their thoughts or being able to put their thoughts or what they're thinking in their heads down on paper. This also helps kids find what is important to them and what is important for the assignment so that they can better understand and complete it the way it's supposed to be done. The book talks about how providing organization rules are helpful for a class, especially an inclusive classroom. This is because the kids are then all seen as the same and put on the same level in a way, because they are using the same tools, or in this case, the same graphic organizers, to help them accomplish what they need and what they want. The example I have here of a graphic organizer used in my placement is about Oreos, where the kids are able to write their own opinion, reason, example, and another opinion of Oreos. This gives them the freedom and ability to write what they want while still following directions and doing what the assignment is asking. The next accommodation deals with the centers that the teacher has around the classroom. As you can see in the picture provided, the teacher has wrote out the centers and has also provided the rotation order and color-coded them so that the kids can follow it easier. This little graph is provided at the front of the classroom and is never changed or moved so that the kids can look up whenever they need if they forget anything about the centers. This is important for all the children, but especially those with ADHD, because the book mentions how children with ADHD do not pay attention to most important stimuli. So if a student forgets what they're doing or wasn't paying attention and doesn't know where they should be or what they should be doing, they can always look up at the board and figure out that information without bothering the teacher or the other students around him or her. The next accommodation the teacher has for the class is keeping the schedule up on the board all day, every day. This is mostly for the kids who need to know what the day is going to be like and to see if there are any changes in the day's schedule. Like for example, in the picture I have above, instead of having intervention in the morning, the kids have junior achievement. By seeing this, a student is able to look and adjust before they need to and are not caught off guard later in the day when their normal schedule has been altered. This is put under the organization part in the book as well, and has also suggested that if a student is very uneasy about changes in schedules, to tell them more in advance, like the day before an altered schedule, so that they have more time to prepare and plan ahead. My last accommodation deals with students' transportation to and from school. By the front door are lists with the students' names on them on how they get to school, whether they walk, take a car, ride the bus, and also what bus number they're on, and so on and so forth. This is very helpful since both the mornings and the afternoons can get a little hectic. And not only can the teacher take a quick look, but so can the students. And the teacher can show the students where to look since it's right by the front door and they can quick take a peek before they leave just in case they forget. The book mentions this when it says that children can have difficulty attending to several stimuli at once. So, for example, say it's the end of the day and a student is having trouble paying attention because there's a lot going on in the classroom and they're just having trouble focusing. The student can always remember how to get home by going up and looking at these little signs and remembering which way of transportation is his or hers. Now, moving on to materials. Here in the picture is a note on a student's desk that says, "Zip it, lock it, put it in my pocket." This student in particular liked to call out and would talk about things not related to what the students were learning. So this note was put on his desk as a reminder to stay quiet and to stay on topic as well. This is under the category of impulsivity in the book on page 252, where it talks about students who blurt out answers, have difficulty waiting in line or his or her turn, interrupts or intrudes on others, butts into their conversations or activities, and acts without thinking or is impatient. Everyone needs a little reminder every once in a while, and that's just exactly what this note does for this student. This next material was one of my favorites. It was not only used in the classroom I was placed in, but was also used school-wide. This behavior tracker was called TRACS and was used to help keep kids' behavior under control. The goal was to stay on the I'm on tracks green category, which is where all the students would start out every morning. If your behavior was not on tracks, you would have to take your paw print and move it down to the yellow, which was a warning. If it still didn't change, you would then move it down to the red, which would mean you would have to write a reflection on why your behavior wasn't on tracks. If your behavior still didn't change, you would then have to move it down to the blue, which would also result in an office referral. On the other hand, if your behavior was above and beyond, you would be able to move your paw up to orange-tastic, which would also mean that you were able to get a prize or a reward when the time came. I really liked this because I feel like it gave the kids something to work for and also rewarded good behavior. This fits perfectly under the compliance section of our book on page 265, where some of the examples are that teachers should praise compliant behavior, supervise student closely during transition times, provide immediate feedback, seat student near teacher, ignore minor misbehavior, set up behavior contract, use teacher attention to reinforce positive behavior, implement classroom behavior management system, and acknowledge positive behavior of nearby students. Some of these examples, if they were not mentioned in this section, were probably mentioned in another section, since during my observation I saw the teacher doing most of these. The last material I will talk about is a math book that each student got that they were able to write in and highlight or do whatever they needed to help them solve the equations to the best of their ability. This is very helpful for students, and especially like the ones the book mentions, that have difficulty getting started and following multiple directions. This math book helps them find what is important and helps them write down their ideas and figure out different ways to solve the problem so that they can get to the right answer. This also takes me back to organization and how the students can organize their thoughts and figure out and understand the questions in their own way. Before this placement, I had little experience with individuals with disabilities. This placement was a great experience for me because I had the chance to see firsthand how inclusion works and to what extent some children's disabilities are. I helped with kids with flashcards and got to see how some kids were able to answer right away and others took a lot longer. I also helped read test questions to kids who had trouble reading and understanding on their own, which showed me a lot. My first impression of the placement was good because it was an inclusive classroom, which is a general classroom with some kids with disabilities, and I couldn't tell which had a disability and who didn't. Also, the environment was very inviting and happy, and the teacher was so sweet, and you can just tell that she loved her job. I knew from day one that I would like the placement because everything was very inviting. I feel like this placement made my beliefs stronger on how children in special education are able to learn, but just might take a little longer to understand. Also, I believe that inclusion is a good idea, and depending on how extreme the disability is, that it is possible for them to learn in a general classroom. This was my first true experience working and observing how special education works, so this was a really great experience for me. It was also really beneficial to be able to help some of the students with their tests. Since some kids weren't able to read and understand what they read at the same time, I got to help them by reading test questions and watch them understand what was being asked so much better. So, like I said before, this basically just strengthened my views on special education and how everyone is able to learn. I don't really have any questions about teaching students with disabilities, but I would like to observe or work in a true special education classroom and see how the teaching takes place there and compare it to how it took place in the inclusive classroom. Something I noticed that I would like to incorporate in my future classroom is this reflector the teacher used to work with the class. She would have a paper that was exactly like the one the kids had and would have a camera display her paper on the front board and show them exactly what she wanted them to do and where to put certain things. I like this because I think the kids felt like the teacher was working with them and not just telling them what to do. It was also better visually because the kids would not only hear the teacher's directions but could also see it as well. Another thing she did that I liked was that she kept the kids who seemed to get distracted easily back by her so that she can keep a closer eye on them and help them when they needed it. Even though this seems simple, I like it because I feel like it would make a difference and help those kids. I will also do a behavior tracker or reward system for good behavior to give the kids something to work for and to help keep their behavior under control. To finish up my project, here is a picture of my hours log sheet. Thanks for listening.